Hey guys, welcome back to Resistance Chicks. We are your hosts, Leah and Michelle. Today is the 10th of July, 2018. Now, we have several things that we want to bring to you, but in my humble opinion, this is a day that is going to go down in history because Trump has pardoned the Hammonds, Dwight and his son, Stephen. So we're going to get into that. We're going to talk about the shambles of Brexit with Theresa May and her non-Brexit plan, Boris Johnson, David Davis resigning.
Two of her cabinet members resigned. Two of the smaller cabinet members have resigned. 4 total, from what I understand. And could be very exciting.
It could be. There could be a vote of no confidence.
Don't touch the wires.
I did not want to do that.
I touched the wire.
We're going to talk about Trump's SCOTUS pick. But before we get into all of that, we want to start out with the good news.
Yes. You know, SCOTUS is something I believe that social media, especially Twitter, has coined.
Well, but it's, I don't know.
People always said Supreme Court nominee.
Right.
Like all the time growing up. I never heard SCOTUS.
Do you know why I think they do it? Because they want to draw the attention off of POTUS.
That's funny. All right, so all the boys are out. Give a cheer and their coach. Woo! Everyone is clear.
So there were boys in Thailand. If you do not know about this story,
they went cave diving with their coach. It rained. You guys know flash floods. We've had some here recently. Some flash floods like we've never had before.
Yes.
And you can just imagine being in a cave. The water just kind of.
It took them 2 weeks
to plan it out.
No. Where they got stuck. They kept moving back and back and back. The boys traversed this. How many miles was it?
It was about 2 miles.
It took them 2 weeks to get back there. They thought they were lost for good, the people that were looking for them. I'm sure they thought they were lost for good. Like, no one's ever going to find us. We're never going to get out of here. This is a miracle-type rescue.
So, the coach, interestingly enough, a little tidbit here, his parents died or abandoned him or something. He became an orphan at 10.
Wow.
So he was sent and he was raised in a monastery.
Okay.
And he learned to meditate. And so they're praising the meditation as a way of keeping the boys calm.
No kidding.
While they were in there.
That's awesome.
And you know, I'm not into like weird cultic things, but there is something to this calming technique that, you know, the Buddhist monks go through. And
I agree with that.
All right, here we go.
Big news while you were sleeping in the West, a dramatic rescue operation unfolded in Thailand where a youth soccer team had been trapped in a cave for more than 2 weeks. Thai Navy SEALs confirmed that rescuers pulled the last of 12 boys and their soccer coach out of that flooded cave this morning. It truly is a miracle. We're told all of them are safe, and that is great news.
Wonderful news. The third phase of this rescue mission started hours ago, with the head of the rescue operation vowing to get everyone else out. 8 of the 12 boys were rescued in the first 2 days, and they're being treated at a local hospital. Thai public health officials say they're in high spirits and doing well. Anna Werner is near the cave in Thailand following the rescue effort. Anna, good morning.
Well, it has been an amazing job performed by these teams, these many rescuers who have come to the site. This third and final day of rescue, as it turned out, the divers, 19 divers, were going in to rescue the 4 boys and their coach who remained in the cave. Also with them, 3 Thai Navy SEALs and a doctor.
Rescue crews worked furiously to keep the water out of the cave by any means necessary, including plugging sinkholes on the mountain that let water in.
Water management is the key to this whole thing.
Tanet Natisi helped lead the effort to remove water from the cave. He told us they faced a critical deadline to get everyone out before heavy rain in the forecast Thursday.
What do you think people don't understand about the attempt to manage the water?
I think people just need to realize that, it's really hard to keep out the water from the cave. We cannot get 100% or even like.
And where does the water go when they pumped it out?
Water drained from the cave helped reduce the fast-moving current and allowed the boys to walk in some parts previously flooded. But the path out still required each boy to swim through dark, narrow passageways flooded with murky water.
No!
2 divers guided boys while they held onto a rope. One diver in the front held an oxygen tank, and another was in the back. The first 4 boys emerged from the cave safely Sunday, and 4 more followed on Monday. Most were flown in helicopters, then driven in ambulances to a Chiang Rai hospital. Natisi says getting all the boys out safely means everything to Thailand.
What was it like for you to see those first kids come out?
I got really emotional. Yeah, all my team are. When we heard the news, all my team just cried. Like, we've been working so hard for the past 5 days, and it's just finally see it happens. Yeah, that's something.
Now, all of those boys are expected to be staying in the hospital for 7 days. Thai media is reporting that some parents actually have seen their kids. They had to stay 2 meters away and wear face masks. That was for the first group of 4 kids. For the second group of 4 kids, their parents also saw them, but only through a glass wall. John?
How happy those parents must be. Anna, the entire world swiveled its head to look at this. Give us some scope of the operation there.
Well, it's a worldwide operation at this point. That's what it became, right? You have 1,000 people who've been working here. That doesn't even include the volunteers who showed up to help. And where did these people come from? From all over the world, essentially. The United States, the UK, China, Japan, Finland, Belgium, Australia, just some of the companies that pitched in. 90 divers, the top divers from around the world, and all of them with a single mission to save this one soccer team and their coach.
The global effort really joining forces there. Anna, can you tell us what went into the process of deciding which boys were coming out first? Was it the strongest or was it the weakest? Because we've been hearing conflicting reports.
So what we heard initially was that they were bringing the strongest boys out first and the weakest last. I suppose that would build up the strength of the weakest boys, but we do want to hear more about that decision-making process because although we did get those tidbits, we didn't really get a methodical understanding of how to organize and who comes out first, second, third, all of that. So we're hoping to hear more from officials either tonight, tomorrow, in the coming days on how all of this played out, Bianca.
This is so
That makes so much sense to send the strongest boys out first to then build morale to be able to come back and say, hey,
you did
made it.
I can do it.
Yeah.
They did it. I can do it.
Yeah. This is so exciting. This is such great news. I don't know if you guys remember hearing that there was that one guy that we watched and he was like, listen, there may be some casualties in this. This is very, very dangerous. And they all made it out alive. It's absolutely
and praise
incredible.
God, they were really good.
There will be a movie about this.
Oh, I hope so.
Oh my gosh, it'll be really great.
Through a cave, through a sump, but they took them diving.
I know, incredible.
Yeah.
Sandra Cloud, so great to have your expertise.
wait.
Thank you.
Come back, Sandra.
Wait, Sandra.
I need you to be back in the beginning. Okay.
Klopp is a diving instructor with nearly 20 years of experience. She has cave dived all around the world. She's here to show us some of the diving equipment rescuers used to save those kids. Sandra Klopp, good morning.
Good morning.
So you have the full face mask there that the kids were wearing. Why was that so important?
So this is important because if the kids get any water inside of a normal scuba mask or a normal rag leaks, it can lead to panic, and there's nowhere to go. They cannot go straight up.
How easy is it, or would it be, for a young boy who's doesn't even know how to swim, let alone put on something this complicated, to put that on, keep it on, and go through what they had to go through to get out?
They need a lot of psychological strength to be able to learn how to clear this mask in a very short amount of time, if any water did get in, to learn how to equalize. Those are the things that people have an intense class on.
Wow, and they probably just had a quick instruction. We learned that there was one diver with the young boy and then another one trailing behind. What do you think that was built for?
That was built for the safety of the kids. So they're probably carrying the tanks for the boys. So they're going to have a longer hose. It's a 7-foot hose. So when they're going through that restriction one by one, they've got a diver in front of them. And then the boy, it sounds like, was coming out with a long hose, 7-foot hose attached to the tanks carried by somebody else.
And it's a challenge for a healthy person to carry all of this equipment, not to mention the psychological stress. We hear that these boys were weak. 2 of them may have had lung infections.
How risky was it for them to go through this process, just given that?
The main risk, it would be panic, I believe, because, again, they cannot go straight up. They have to go out, so they have to remain calm. If they feel uncomfortable, then they just have to really focus on staying calm, because when you start to move around and panic, you can let water into the system. It's a pretty good seal on these things, but still, you want to treat them gently.
And how would, in a normal circumstance, and then give us your thoughts about how it would have worked in this case, how do you communicate with other people that you're in this water that was described as being in like chocolate milk?
We use light signals in cave diving, and if they're sump diving, if the visibility is even worse, and if they stir it to nothing, then we have touch contact we do, but it takes a long time to train to be able to do blackout scenarios where you can be in touch contact and communicate by touching each other. And these boys don't have time to do that training.
Sandra, based on everything you've heard this morning, would you call this a miracle getting them all out?
I think they were in very competent hands. It was a world-class team that was out there that knew what they were doing. Mm-hmm. And I think the boys felt safe in those hands. And if anybody could get them out, it was the team that did. They kept them calm. They told them what they needed to know. And they took the boys diving through a cave, through a sump, but they took them diving.
I know, incredible. Yeah. Sandra Cloud, so great to have your expertise. Thank you so much.
That's crazy. Oh my gosh. So from what I understand, and I've never been diving, these tanks are really heavy. So it's amazing that there was the diver in front that's carrying his own tank and the tank for the child.
Right.
You know, with the 7-foot hose, which sounds long, but not really.
No, not when you're going forward and they're right behind you.
Yeah.
Soccer team and their coach out of a cave where they were trapped for 18 days.
That's right. The last of the 5 people who were still stuck underground were brought out of the cave a short time ago, and they are being taken to a hospital. You can see the ambulances there.
The first 8 boys rescued on Sunday and Monday are recovering this morning. Doctors say they are in good spirits. Anna Werner is near the rescue scene in Chiang Rai, Thailand. Anna, good morning.
Good morning. And they couldn't have done any better on this rescue. What an amazing effort that they've managed to pull off here. You know, the world has been watching this rescue mission for 2 weeks, these whole events in the cave, first wondering, would they find the team? Then once they were found, wondering how and if they could even rescue them from the cave. Now today, 19 divers went in once again, taking part to rescue the remaining boys and their coach. The team will now undergo physical and mental evaluations at the hospital. They've been trapped since June 23rd when they explored the cave after soccer practice. There was intense pressure to get these boys out before heavy rains made this dangerous operation even riskier. Divers and consultants came from around the world to help get the boys out, including the U.S., Britain, Australia, China, Japan, Finland, and Belgium. Now, the boys in the hospital, they're expected to be there for at least 7 days. They're being quarantined, and 2 may have lung infections. But tonight we're learning that the parents of the first group of 4 boys actually have been allowed into the same room with their sons. They had to stand 2 meters away and wear protective gear like face masks, but they did get into the room with them.
The boys would have a weakened immune system.
They have also seen their boys, but through a glass window. All
right, so I want to break this down to you guys. Why are Resistance Chicks covering this? Don't you just do conspiracy theories? Don't you just do the crazy world news? You guys have to understand something. The fact that there has been so much coverage on a legitimate news story makes me happy.
Well, and Donald Trump tweeted out, on behalf of the United States, congratulations to the Thai Navy SEALs and all on the successful rescue of 12 boys and their coach from the treacherous cave in Thailand. Such a beautiful moment. All freed. Great job.
We need this kind of moment right now as a world. So there's a unification that has happened. Divers coming from all over the world. There's no, there's Russia collusion, so the Russians aren't coming, or, it doesn't matter where these divers are coming from. They went to Thailand. They did the job. They got it done. This is amazing.
When we talk about globalization and you have the globalists and they want a global community, that is what they want you to think is happening. But what we're talking about is like global control of the people.
Exactly.
And we are one world, and technology has united us. And these are our brothers and sisters across the world,
Right.
And I know that Thailand's actually filled with a bunch of Christians too.
Yeah.
So I'm sure a lot of these parents were praying Christians, and so I'm going to pray with them.
Yes.
And so this is the kind of global relationship
and community
that we should have, where you had autonomous people from each country choosing and volunteering to go help.
Right.
And it's that volunteerism. It's not the same if it's NATO. It's not the same if it's UN troops go in.
Yeah.
Right? It's so much different when you have each country just voluntarily saying, and volunteers coming in saying, I want to help. I want to help. And this is a perfect example on how you can be an autonomous country and be part of a global community.
I love that. So Kim on Facebook Live says, I haven't slept in days. I was praying the whole time. Praise God for bringing them all out. Well said, Kim. We've been praying. You guys have been praying. This is a bona fide miracle, so of course we're going to bring it to you.
Yes. All right. So now I want to take a look at this new Supreme Court justice pick. His name is Judge Kavanaugh.
Brett Kavanaugh.
And he had said that he would, I'm going to see if I can get a piece here where he's speaking. If I unmuted it, it'd be good.
Or talked with more people from more backgrounds to seek input.
Let's see.
The framers established that the Constitution is designed to secure the blessings of liberty. Justice Kennedy devoted his career to securing liberty. I am deeply honored to be nominated to fill his seat on the Supreme Court. My mom and dad are here.
And he goes on to say that his mom was a teacher, and then she became a prosecutor, a lawyer, and then his dad became a lawyer too.
70s, she taught history at two large. What rings false?
That was her.
What rings false?
Let's see.
Use your common sense. What rings true? What rings false?
And that was what she would tell jurors at the end of
That's good advice for a juror and for a son. One of the few women prosecutors at that time, she overcame barriers and became a trial judge. The president introduced me tonight as Judge Kavanaugh, but to me, that title will always belong to my mom.
So in this speech, because I listened to the whole thing, he played up the fact that he was proud that he hired a lot of women as his clerks. He is very diverse. He went to a Jesuit high school where he learned to serve the community.
Went to a Jesuit high school.
We're going to get into a little conspiracy theory there. But I'm going to tell you something. Going to a Jesuit high school is not any worse or better than going to a public high school. You might as well just say I went to public high school. And saying, it is, seriously, because there are things, good things that you are taught in the Catholic faith.
No. What I have a problem with is, by and large, when we can look at a lot of these cray-cray globalists, they have some sort of Jesuit background. So whenever I hear that, it just kind of goes,
but I didn't want,
goes, ding, ding,
I didn't want people to freak out over it. What I'm saying is that he could have said public school, it's just as bad.
No, yeah. Okay. But not a lot of times you don't see the conspiracy theorist of
the motto of my
public high school.
They just become liberals.
Jesuit high school,
let's see.
The law, and must interpret the law.
Here we go.
And a friend. My judicial philosophy is straightforward. A judge must be independent and must interpret the law, not make the law. A judge must interpret statutes as written, and a judge must interpret the Constitution as written, informed by history and tradition and precedent.
So I've been hearing things, good and bad, that he was in the Bush administration. I think even when 9/11 happened, he was in a building they had to run out of. So he is part of the DC culture. Mm-hmm. And as Judge Napolitano says he is the heart and soul of the establishment. However, I don't want that to scare you because this is one side of the coin.
Right.
But we are going to look at both sides of the coin. Judge Andrew Napolitano says, I'm disappointed in the president because this is not the type of person that he said we would pick. Justice Gorsuch was. This is the heart and soul of the D.C. establishment against whom the president railed. That he's in part of the D.C. world. He grew up in D.C. Mm-hmm. He's part of the social culture in D.C. And
meaning he is totally out of touch with the American people.
Exactly.
For one. And that's just a baseline red flag.
I don't think it's a game changer, but I think it's not a let's go get him kind of moment for Trump. Justin Amash says Kavanaugh is not under Gorsuch, not even close. Disappointing pick, particularly with respect to the Fourth Amendment record. Future decisions on the constitutionality of the government surveillance of Americans will be huge. We can't afford a rubber stamp for the executive branch. Senator Rand Paul echoed similar concerns about Kavanaugh's record on government surveillance, but vowed to consider the nomination with an open mind. However, what is so hilarious about this whole thing, and if you can go to the Resistance Chicks Facebook page, we'll play part of that clip with those young people saying that they hated the pick before he was even picked. The liberals are acting so crazy. So, why didn't Trump pick another Gorsuch? There was a woman, her name is Amy Barrett.
Yeah.
And she was
I thought for
devout
sure that
Christian Catholic.
She was going to be the pick because she's a woman. Just on that grounds alone.
But they had grilled her on her the previous appointment, a federal appointment, and for being Christian and for being Catholic. And so I think Trump wanted to stump the establishment by picking somebody he knew would be nominated. And so there are many ways that Trump works.
Right.
And
I think that's why he did it. I really do think that's why he did it. That's my humble opinion.
I think he definitely would have gone harder. I think he thinks that he still has more picks. I think Ruth Bader Ginsburg is 85 years old. She was sleeping at the State of the Union address.
She was, but I don't know if maybe that was in protest or if she just...
She was sleeping. She fell asleep. It was past her nap time.
Right.
So she's going to get to the place where she's not going to be able to... She may not even relinquish her seat. She may just be a seat empty while she's sick. But we don't know. He thinks in 6 years, in 6 years she'll be 91. It's like kind of... So I have some... The liberals are going absolutely crazy. And here's a video here from...
Donald Trump had a list of people that had been pre-screened by the Federalist Society. And so he knew that everyone on that list was committed to overturn Roe versus Wade because that's the standard they use. He knows that everyone on that list is committed to overturning health care rights for tens of millions of Americans. So the question then becomes, how do you pick under those circumstances? And Donald Trump picks the person who says, it would be a total disaster for the United States of America if it turned out that the President of the United States got indicted. Now, the reason this is so important is look at what he did with the Consumer Agency. Look at what he did with the Environmental Protection Agency.
So Kavanaugh had said you can't put a president under a criminal investigation because they can just pardon themselves.
Right.
You have to impeach them. That's what the Constitution says.
I'm back to the 6th and I'm still not seeing it.
I posted it on the Facebook. It was before the well. The well. It was before the well. Wait, it was an article. It wasn't a video. You're going to see more of an article. Keep going. Keep down. Down. That's what. Right there.
That's it right here?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's why I kept passing it up.
Yeah. So you have these people here.
Supreme Court.
Protesting. Chuck Schumer is vowing to oppose Trump's Supreme Court pick. They have the same speech for every single nominee.
Right.
I'm not going to show you Michael Moore talking about everybody get in your streets and protest. It's absolutely hilarious.
Including every sitting member of the court.
Justice
who will protect our health care.
Let me see. Chucky's the best here.
Over for Americans unconstitutional. With Judge Kavanaugh's nomination, the president has put women's reproductive rights and vital health care protections, particularly those that protect families with pre-existing conditions, at grave, grave risk.
Obamacare.
The American people cannot afford either. For every American who cares about women's health, about protections for people with pre-existing conditions, about civil rights, labor rights, LGBTQ rights, environmental rights, now is the time to fight.
Rights for frogs, rights for trees, rights for everything. We are just we are the left, and all we do is pick everything that we can and just come be on our side. Everybody.
You know, it's so interesting that the left loves to talk about the rights for minorities, but that's why the rights of the preborn are not recognized by them, because they're a vast majority. So that's why they don't have any rights. That's why they're not recognized by the left, because he loves to talk about all these rights. Where are the preborn in that rights Rolodex you keep flipping through?
Right. On the other side of the coin, Pat Buchanan has written an article that has been shared via Zero Hedge. And I love Pat Buchanan. He thinks just like I do. I don't think like him. He thinks like me. He is along the lines of a libertarian Rand Paul with conservative Christian views on social matters, and but he speaks out against like crazy interventionary wars and stuff like that. So I love this guy. He could have been a great president. He ran. So, anyways, he says this, and this might encourage you. Is liberalism's great strategic ally about to fall? Now, the court has been stacked with liberals, and when presidents have picked justices, like with Roberts and Kennedy, and the chick, Sandra Day O'Connor's, they're all been swinging towards like on social issues and voting with their liberal friends. It's really funny how you never see the liberals really siding with the conservatives, but you do every once in a while. We have seen it recently. If Mitch McConnell's Senate can confirm his new nominee for the Supreme Court, President Donald Trump may have completed the capture of all three branches of the U.S. government for the Republican Party. Not bad for a rookie. And the lamentations of the left are surely justified. For liberalism's great strategic ally and asset for the last 60 years, the judicial dictatorship erected by Earl Warren and his associates may be about to fall. Judicial supremacy may be on the way out. Another constitutionalist on the court in the tradition of Scalia, I can never say his name, forget me. I want to call him Antonia or whatever. It does not roll off my tongue. Could bring down the curtain on the social revolution the court has been imposing since the salad days of Chief Justice Earl Warren. Among the changes Warren's court and its successors succeeded in imposing are the de-Christianization of the public school institutions of America, the social war of the 1970s over forced busing for racial bounds in public schools, the creation of new constitutional rights, first to abortion, then to homosexuality, and to same-sex marriage. But while the confirmation of a new Trump justice may bring an end to the revolution, it will return power to where it belongs in a constitutional republic with elected legislators and elected executives. There will not likely be any sudden radical rollback of changes wrought in 6 decades, for some of those changes have become in the public consciousness as a new normal and will endure. Roe v. Wade may be challenged on the chopping block. Why did it take until Trump to restore constitutionalism to the Supreme Court when the Warren Court had been a blazing issue since the 1950s and Republicans held the presidency for 28 years from 1968 to 2016 and had managed to elevate 12 justices? Every GOP president save Bush II has appointed justices who grew to believe the court had a right to remake America, to conform to their image and the ideal liberal democracy, and so they acted. said Ike ruefully on his retirement, I like Ike. My mom had a button collection from like the 70s, and it was hilarious because like when I was a kid, I threw the buttons all out, and she had a pin that says I like Ike.
I think everybody did back then.
This is fun. So Ike had concentration camps in World War II, and William Brennan, the most radical justice to sit on the court in half a century. That's a little, I'm sorry. Nixon came to office committed to rein in the court by naming strict constructionists. Yet 3 of the 4 justices he named would vote for Roe v. Wade in 1973. Harry Blackmun, whom Nixon rushed onto the bench after his Southern nominees, they helped Roe v. Wade. And Nixon's 4th nominee, William Rehnquist, was his best and brilliant. Over 30 years, Kennedy's vote, who just retired, proved society as a top 20 that they would like to see on the Supreme Court.
Right.
So this is not all is lost.
Right.
And that's what I wanted to get across. Now, go ahead and play the video for the people. This will make you laugh. If it doesn't, then it will.
Oh, well, that's where I clicked on it before.
Scroll.
That's just a picture?
Yeah.
Okay.
There it is.
There it is. So keep in mind here as we're playing this was done before Trump.
I'm Calvin Phillips with Campus Reform. Today we're in New York City talking to students about President Trump's Supreme Court pick. The only thing is he hasn't made that pick yet. Will people still have opinions on who it was, though? Let's find out. I think the big thing that's been in the news today, Supreme Court, Justice Kennedy stepping down, so there's a vacancy. All week people were worried about who it was going to be. This week he made his announcement. What's your reaction to the justice that he nominated today?
I'm honestly not surprised by his choice, but that's just worse for us. I just saw the pick and I was like, it's almost at a point where you kind of expect that it's not going to be what you want.
He's quite, extreme in his views, and I don't know if it would make the Supreme Court very even.
I see it all over the news that he's racist and shit.
This new nominee is very racist, and I think it's starting a new wave of something very negative, and I'm really scared about what happens in the future and what choices he'll make.
So what reaction have you seen on social media today after the news?
Oh, outrage, as it should be.
If this is just a recurring thing, he keeps doing this with different positions and just doing whatever he wants, abusing his power.
Do you feel like his pick is an abuse of power?
Basically, yeah.
His entire cabinet and everyone he's chosen has been the white supremacist Legion of Doom, and it's dangerous to everyone who looks like me.
You feel like the Supreme Court nominee today kind of...
whole thing, and he's not going to last. I mean,
So you're not a fan of the pick?
I'm really not.
I did speak to my dad a couple days ago, and I know he was not a huge fan of the decision that he made.
What would be your message to President Trump on what qualities you would want a Supreme Court justice to have?
Black, a black woman.
Is it wrong, though, to suggest someone be picked just on the color of their skin, though?
I mean, but I said black women for a reason. Black women were the only ones who really turned out in full majority to not vote for President Trump.
I think you should just listen to the people.
Let me pause that really quick. If you guys remember that Trump got a massive increase in the female black vote as opposed to other conservative presidents, by the way.
Opinions of what people actually want.
Do you think President Obama listened to the opinions of the people when he nominated 2 Supreme Court justices?
I was young then, so I can't say that either.
I definitely want them to be liberal and look to the views of the minorities. Like, the previous Supreme Court justice was a swing vote. Like, you should have some balance. You shouldn't just be all on one side.
Obviously, if that's his pick, then, there's nothing we can truly, do as, citizens other than, really get our voices out there. That is not.
So, there you go.
So, did you guys see how convincing they were? I would never trust them ever to watch my kid. How did you do? They were great. The kids were great. We played with them, and we did. No, you're a liar. You lie out every part of your orifices, and you do it well. All of you millennials, they are just spin doctors.
They are.
And you know what it's like, because Michelle and I can do it, but we try to do it honestly. Okay? So when you're having a conversation with someone, right? You try to bring out the parts that you are sure of and not look like an idiot.
Right.
Okay? So what you're supposed to do is talk about what you do know when you don't know something.
Right.
But you don't talk about what you don't know when you don't know something.
Mm-hmm. Because it could come out to bite you in the rear.
My goodness.
This was really painful for me to watch last night when you played it for me, because I really felt bad for these people, because I was like, they're going to watch that back and never live it down. Ever. So there is that.
I'm going to read some of these comments as Michelle has them up. This one is really interesting. This has nothing to do with anything. But a black woman stabbed a man at a gas station in Michigan this morning. They showed all black men walked by and didn't even call 911. That is very interesting.
Oh my gosh.
If you had wanted their heads to explode, tell Trump to have nominated Sebastian Gorka. The fact that the snowflakes don't like the decision is good enough for me, and it was the right decision.
No, because they weren't going to like any... You just watched the video, right? They weren't going to like any pick. He could have picked the most liberal person, and they would have been like, whoa, he's got some sort of underlying...
But I understand what he's saying.
I know, I'm just saying.
I understand what you're saying. I'm with you on that one. Tell him he appointed a black conservative woman and just, he identifies as, a white guy. Somebody want to know, why can't I give you super chats? We haven't ventured into that
for a reason,
but thank you for offering. I appreciate that. Let's see. Racism is always their excuse. Most people hate me as I'm a white Christian male. I've learned to live with that indignation. And I'm really sorry about that, because you have all these black people over here on the side who have been maligned and have been treated badly. Mm-hmm. But they have been elevated, and we worked on it, and as a country. And most of the time now, people of color are sometimes treated even better. In my experience, sometimes they get put to the front sometimes. So it's like you just really have to treat people on the context of their character. Everybody, a lot of you are talking about the Novichok and the Skripal case, and I'm sorry I haven't really covered that, because I did before. There was another Novichok poisoning in the UK.
The lady actually died.
And Russia has said, why would we do that? The World Cup's happening right now.
Right.
Speaking of the World Cup.
The World Cup!
I have been informed that France is going to the final. I do not follow soccer. I kind of despise soccer. If you grew up playing softball and football in America, a lot of us old school people from the 80s and 90s just kind of have this aversion to football, soccer. It's just a thing. It's like a preference. It's a kind of a running joke. Nothing wrong with soccer. Just, it's a joke around here. But anyways, it's a big thing, especially for our UK viewers, who are now waiting on pins and needles to see how the game will go with Croatia, because I was just informed today by a very trusted source that England has been playing very well. And by the way, for all of our UK viewers, it's not the UK team. It's the England team, according to everybody I know.
So we can say England now?
I don't know. It's the English team.
Because we never know when we're allowed to say England or English.
So the question is there an Irish and Scotland team? I don't know. I honestly don't know. And so I guess that's why people are waving the St. George's flag, because it's
England tomorrow at 1 p.m. Jamaica time.
And so it could be, and a lot of people are kind of excited that Brexit might turn around, and they'll win the World Cup, and everything in the world will be right again.
Right.
A couple more things on this Supreme Court justice nominee.
And then
Heller
we're going to, it's 7 p.m. UK time. It was called Heller 2
because the Supreme Court had ruled in the Heller case that guns that are in common use are protected by the Second Amendment, and invalidated D.C.'s handgun ban. Well, D.C. made their law even worse after that. They banned what they called assault weapons, which are common semi-automatic rifles. But to make a long story short, there was a 2-1 decision where we challenged the new onerous D.C. requirements, both in terms of the rifle ban and registration requirements. And Judge Kavanaugh, in the year 2011, that was when the opinion appeared, in his dissent, had probably the most detailed analysis of why the Second Amendment protects firearms, including semi-auto rifles, and why it's inconsistent with the onerous registration requirements that D.C. had imposed. So you won't find a better decision. It was a dissent, but a better decision from a Second Amendment perspective on why these gun bans that exist in California, New York, and places like that are invalid under the Second Amendment.
All right.
And so Judge...
So I wanted you guys to think about that. I wanted you to see that he wrote a very detailed dissent protecting your Second Amendment rights. So that's actually really good.
That is good news.
And we have here's some
liberals. With the most extreme voices from the Senate. The usual suspects, Cory Booker, Elizabeth Warren, and everyone's favorite goofy socialist, Bernie Sanders, all condemned Kavanaugh. Here's how the left-leaning MSNBC arranged the reaction from the trio.
President Trump has told us what he wants to do. He wants to roll back individual rights. He wants to roll back a woman's right. He wants to roll back workers' rights. He wants to roll back civil rights. But I want to tell you right now, we will not go backwards.
President Trump has announced his plan to nominate Judge Brett Kavanaugh for a lifetime appointment to the United States Supreme Court. I am not going to sugarcoat this. We are in the fight of our lives.
We have the American people on our side. Now we have got to go state by state by state to make sure that senators do what their constituents want.
No, Bernie Sanders, you don't have the country behind you. They thought you was the anti-establishment candidate, but you sided with Hillary Clinton and you lost all your Bernie burners. You burned them, baby. You burned them. They're not feeling the burn. They got heartburn out of it. They need a Tums. Thank you, Bernie, for providing us with our comic relief for the evening.
No, thank you, Bernie, for providing the comic relief.
No problem. Anytime. You want to read the Communist Manifesto? I read it every night before I go to bed.
Oh my gosh.
Workers of the world unite. That's a commie theme.
I know.
Yeah, here we
I
go.
know. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. All right, so
you burned him.
Leah has to be somewhere. I don't know if you are allowed to postpone that or if you want me to finish the show. But before that happens, I know you're going to play PJW. Did you want to touch on the Hammonds briefly?
Yeah, here.
We went live about this earlier, and we brought Kansas in on it because he grew up on a ranch, knows about controlled burns, which is the reason why they were, quote unquote, brought into all this trouble to start with. So you guys can watch that entire stream separately.
Yeah.
But we have amazing news to bring you. Trump has pardoned. I just spit on you guys. I'm sorry about that.
I like the way Alex Jones and
Joseph Watson.
No, Roger Stone here break this down. I got Paul Joseph Watson, but they would break it down a little bit better for you here. Okay.
This morning announcing that he is pardoning two members of the Hammond family who had done some controlled burns before that are totally normal on your own land. There was another controlled burn. This goes on all over the country, and they couldn't even prove it was them. They tried to call it arson. Had a kangaroo group put him in jail. Sparked a lot of outrage.
Hi, Sydney.
I mean, you've got illegal aliens killing people every day, stabbing them and shooting them when they don't even go to jail, or killing an FBI agent, a $280 fine. Meanwhile, a fire that hurts nobody, that burned some grass. You're going to go to jail for 5 years, and then it's almost sparked a huge uprising in the West. Recap what you were saying about how they've been squeezing the West, how under Obama and even Bush and Clinton, they've taken so much more land, how they treat people on their own land, how they try to block roads so you can get to your land. I mean, there's a rewilding going on under UNESCO and the treaty that George Herbert Walker Bush signed.
Well, and the most egregious example of this, of course, was the Bundy family of Nevada. The claim that the Bundys hadn't paid their rent, in essence, to the government is false. They attempted to pay their rent to the county because they believed the land belonged to the state, not the federal government. The government's misconduct in the Bundy case was so egregious, was so outrageous, that the judge threw the case out, and then it was announced last week that they will not be retried. I flew out there for a rally for freedom for the Bundys several months ago, and the energy was quite extraordinary. So the Hammonds are in a very similar situation, sympathetic to the Bundys, but the ranchers and the farmers of the West are tired of these jackbooted thugs who work for the Bureau of Land Management. Where does it say that they get their own police department, their own paramilitary organization? The facts here were clear to the president. He didn't have to pardon the Bundys. All I think he would have. In the end, the judge threw out those charges, so a pardon became unnecessary. In this case, he has done the valiant and right thing by pardoning the Hammonds.
And it just shows what heroes the Bundys and others have been. And then David Knight was there in the middle of it with our crew. Just an amazing historic event. And then the persecution they went through, then the vindication by the judge. There's something new in the wind out there. People are sick of producers being harassed and targeted and treated like criminals, and then criminals being held up like they're gods. Roger Stone, we were talking, we only have a minute left before I go to this Paul Watson report, about the fact that the White House doesn't deny report Trump made secret deal with Kennedy over retirement replacement. Well, let's think.
So I did hear that. That was a little thing. Somebody said, that he made a deal with Roberts that might, I don't know. I don't know if it's true. It sounds like a rumor to me. I'm not exactly sure. So what in the world is going on in the UK right now?
Well, I thought you had a PJW video.
I do. I didn't know if you wanted to tell him first. You told me to play PJW.
Oh, okay, yeah. No, actually, let's start with Paul Joseph Watson, but just as an overview for our American viewers, which we tried to go live a little bit earlier than normal for our UK viewers tonight. I know it's actually really late there right now, going on midnight. Sorry about that.
But you know what? Like Mom said, a lot of people stay up late.
True. So those of you in the UK know everything. You know what's going on. This is for the Americans. Theresa May came with a Brexit plan that is pretty much not Brexit. She's trying to pretend that it is, and it's not. So we have the Foreign Secretary, Boris Johnson. He's the one with the Muppet hair. Love him most of the time. He resigned over this, and we're going to get to that. I'm going to read his letter of resignation. We're going to cover a little bit about that. The chief Brexit negotiator, David Davis, also resigned. So we've got two huge cabinet members.
And two lesser cabinet members resigned.
And I think there might even be more than that on the lesser ones right now. They've resigned. It's falling apart, and there is a possibility that there could be a vote of no confidence, which means there would be another election within the Tory party for a prime minister.
Let me break that down, because it's a high possibility and it could happen within a week.
Yes.
So if 40 or more people within the Tory party write in and say, I have no confidence, we need to trigger a vote. They'll trigger a vote within the party, not both sides of the party, but within the party, from what I understand. And if there's a majority that has no confidence, then what they're going to do, Theresa May will be forced to resign. And then anybody within the party can put their name forward. Right. And then they go through this really interesting way of getting the prime minister. Really? Right. They vote for everybody. They put a vote in, and the last guy gets knocked off. And they vote again, the last guy gets knocked off. Until you get down to two, and the last guy gets knocked off.
So I don't know how PJW is going to start this off, because I haven't seen this video yet. But if it starts off where I think it does, I want to explain this scene to you right here. So Theresa May, after having received Boris Johnson's resignation and David Davis's resignations, she kind of goes to give this speech of platitudes, and everybody in the House of Parliament laughs at her. They just laugh at her. So
she is a really good spinner, And I think they're tired of being spun. They're like, I have been at the Ferris wheel way too long. I'm getting sick. I ate too many hot dogs. It's all, and they're just like puking, like too much spin.
All right, let's hear from PJ.
Right after Brexit Secretary David Davis and Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson resigned. So why did they resign? Because Theresa May brazenly betrayed Brexit by proposing a deal with the EU that would de facto keep the UK in the customs union, subjecting us to the same regulatory and legal framework that we voted to leave, and hampering us from doing trade deals with other countries that would provide us with economic independence and prosperity. The very reason why we voted for Brexit in the first place. Correct me if I'm wrong, but when I went to vote in the referendum, I didn't see a third option that said leave, sign up to everything under a different name, and be the EU's bitch, to illustrate how much of a sellout this was. May ran the plan by Europhile-in-chief Angela Merkel before it was even seen by her own party's MPs. Knowing it was a bad deal, she preempted her own ministers resigning on Friday by telling them they'd be quickly forgotten and revoking access to their government vehicles. And guess who praised the plan? Anna Soubry, Ken Clarke and Vince Cable, three of the biggest Ramonas in Parliament. That tells you everything, as we warned all along. Brexit is being betrayed. Theresa May and her negotiators have cowed and rolled over to the EU at every turn. Her prime negotiator is a Remainer who in his Oxford days was a Soviet fanboy who defended Stalin and implied communism was preferable to capitalism. At this point, they're taking the piss. So what happens next? Well, Boris and Davis have indicated that they resigned not to force Theresa May out, but to force her to revise her disastrous Brexit plan, which, given that she's had 2 years to craft it and has delivered what Boris himself called a giant turd, sounds like a forlorn hope. It's time for Theresa to go. It's time to flush the turd. 15% of Conservative MPs, or 48 of them to be precise, have to write a letter to the 1922 committee triggering a vote of confidence in Theresa May. If she loses, then she's toast. That will trigger a new leadership contest, which hopefully a committed Brexiteer will win. The new leader will then almost certainly feel a need to secure a mandate from the country by calling a new general election. He or she will then have to defeat Labour's Jeremy Corbyn and save the UK from entering a hard left tyranny ruled by someone who thinks Venezuela's socialist dystopia is a good example to follow. If Corbyn wins, he'll almost certainly derail Brexit or call for a second referendum. If May wins, she'll deliver, at best, a soft Brexit, which is a Brexit in name only, which is no Brexit at all. So it's basically all or nothing. We need a leader who believes in Brexit. For most people, that man is Jacob Rees-Mogg. But JRM is a reluctant leader. He's said numerous times he doesn't want to do it. Could Rees-Mogg be kingmaker? Could it be time for Boris? Since the day after Brexit, I warned that the vote to leave was merely the start of the battle. Don't expect the elite to take this lying down. They'll just make us vote again in another referendum until they get the result they want. These people are snakes. Don't think the battle is won. It's only just beginning. Theresa May is surrounded by establishment globalists who share the very same attitude that sold us out to the EU in the first place. The very backstab that Margaret Thatcher warned us about.
There'd be no European Central Bank accountable to no one, least of all to national parliaments. Because the point of that kind of European Central Bank is no democracy, taking powers away from every single parliament and being able to have a single currency and a monetary policy and an interest rate which takes all political power away from us. As my right honourable friend said in his first speech after the proposal of a single currency is about the politics of Europe. It is about a federal Europe by the back door.
They have no interest whatsoever in delivering Brexit. Right. They have no loyalty to this sovereign nation. So Conservative MPs have a choice to make. Is your loyalty to Theresa May's dreadful political legacy, a legacy that has betrayed 17.4 million people and the very notion of democracy itself? A legacy that has led directly to the UK's soaring violent crime problem. A legacy that has exacerbated the problem of mass uncontrolled immigration. A legacy that has eroded free speech and emboldened cultures hostile to our own. Is your loyalty to that worth more than your loyalty to your country? Is it worth more than your loyalty to the sanctity of democracy? Is your legacy going to be about how you sold out to Brussels, or how at this pivotal moment in UK political history you stood up for Great Britain?
Okay, so in classic PJW style, that was incredible. I love that. He did an excellent job of breaking that down. Now, what I want to do here for you guys is to I'm just going to switch you over so that you can see my screen and see what I'm seeing. Because I want to walk you through some of this stuff, what's going on, what happened, exactly. Let me close that. We don't want that going. But I'm going to go ahead because I have some videos also that I'm going to play for you. So I'm going to put this in. All right, let me switch over. All right. So I am going to read this stuff to you. I'm going to kind of skim over some of it. We don't need to see those boots. That is not what we need to see. All right. So try not to smirk too much, Boris. Johnson poses for a picture of himself, and I put that in the, here it is, right here on the thumbnail to start. Boris Johnson poses for a picture of himself signing his lengthy resignation letter as he accuses May of letting the Brexit dream die. And Jacob Rees-Mogg says he will make a brilliant prime minister. So before I get to the rest of that article, let me go down here, and I think it's down here. Yes, it is. So I can make this a little bit bigger. Come on. All right, so this is the letter that he wrote. Dear Theresa, it is more than 2 years since the British people voted to leave the European Union on an unambiguous and categorical promise that if they did so, they would be taking back control of their democracy. They were told that they would be able to manage their own immigration policy, repatriate the sums of UK cash currently spent by the EU, and above all, that they would be able to pass laws independently and in the interests of the people of this country. Brexit should be about opportunity and hope. It should be a chance to do things differently, to be more nimble and dynamic and maximize the particular advantages of the UK as an open, outward-looking global economy. That dream is dying, suffocated by needless self-doubt. We have postponed crucial decisions, including the preparations for no deal, as I argued in my letter to you of last November, with the result that we appear to be heading for a semi-Brexit with large parts of the economy still locked in the EU system, but with no UK control over that system. It now seems that the opening bit of our negotiations involves accepting that we are not actually going to be able to make our own laws. Indeed, we seem to have gone backwards since the last Chequers meeting in February, when I described my frustrations as Mayor of London in trying to protect cyclists from juggernauts. We had wanted to lower the cabin windows to improve visibility, and even though such designs were already on the market, and even though there had been a horrific spat of deaths, mainly of female cyclists, we were told that we had to wait for the EU to legislate the matter. So at the previous... Oh, stop coming up with the videos there. At the previous Chequers session, we thrashed out an elaborate procedure for divergence from the EU rules, but even that now seems to have been taken off the table, and there is in fact no easy UK right of initiative. Yes, yet if Brexit is to mean anything, it must surely give ministers and Parliament the chance to do things differently to protect the public. If a country cannot pass a law to save the lives of female cyclists, when that proposal is supported at every level of the UK government, then I don't see how that country can truly be called independent. Conversely, the British government has spent decades arguing against this or that EU directive on the grounds that it was too burdensome or ill thought out. We are now in the ludicrous position of asserting that we must accept huge amounts of precisely such EU law without changing an iota, because it is essential for our economic health. And when we no longer have any ability to influence these laws as they are made, in that respect, we are truly headed for the status of colony, and many will struggle to see the economic or political advantages of that particular arrangement. It is also clear that by surrendering control over our rulebook for goods and agri-foods and much else besides. We will make it much more difficult to do free trade deals. And then there is the further impediment of having to argue for an impractical and undeliverable customs arrangement unlike any other in existence. What is even more disturbing is that this is our opening bid. This is already how we see the end state up for the UK before the other side has made its counter offer. It is as though we are sending our vanguard into battle with the white flags fluttering above them. Indeed, I was concerned looking at Friday's document that there might be further concessions on immigration, or that we might end up effectively paying for access to the single market. On Friday, I acknowledged that my side of the argument was too few to prevail and congratulated you on at least reaching a cabinet decision on the way forward. As I said then, the government now has a song to sing. The trouble is that I have practiced the words over the weekend and find that they stick in the throat. We must have collective responsibility. Since I cannot in all conscience champion these proposals, I have sadly concluded that I must go. I am proud to have served as Foreign Secretary in your government. As I step down, I would like first to thank the patient officers of the Metropolitan Police who have looked after me and my family at times in demanding circumstances. I am proud, too, of the extraordinary men and women of our diplomatic service. Over the last few months, they have shown how many friends this country has around the world, as 28 governments expelled Russian spies in an unprecedented protest at the attempted assassination of the Skripals. They have organized a highly successful Commonwealth summit and secured record international support for this government's campaign for 12 years of quality education for every girl and much more besides. As I leave office, the FCO now has the largest and by far the most effective diplomatic network of any country in Europe, a continent which we will never leave. Now, I love that resignation letter. I love it. I'm not exactly sure right now of the motivations for Boris Johnson to leave. I do think that he is going to make a bid at Prime Minister. And I think that he did this to cause a stir, to show the people that he means Brexit, that he could be the pick for Prime Minister. I kind of think that's what we have going on here. All right. So now that you have heard Boris Johnson's letter, let me now take you guys to Theresa May in Parliament. Wait, rewind. Here we are. This is kind of her response to these resignations. And you can listen for yourself to the background and the people that were laughing and pretty much heckling her as she addressed.
Turning to Brexit, Mr. Speaker, I want to pay tribute to my right honourable friends, the members for Horton, Price and Howden, and Uxbridge and South Ruislip for their work over the last 2 years. We do not agree about the best way of delivering our shared commitment to honour the result of the referendum, but I want to recognise the work of the former Secretary of State for exiting the European Union, for the work he did to establish a new department and steer through Parliament some of the most important legislation for generations. And similarly to recognise the passion that the former Foreign Secretary demonstrated in promoting
Order! The unseemly atmosphere. I want to hear about these important matters. And I think the House should. The Prime Minister.
Thank you. That the former Foreign Secretary demonstrated in promoting a global Britain to the world as we leave the European Union. And I'm also pleased to welcome my honourable friend, the member for Esher and Walton, as the new Secretary of State for exiting the European Union. Mr. Speaker, on Friday at Chequers, the Cabinet agreed a comprehensive and ambitious proposal that provides a responsible and credible basis for progressing negotiations with the EU towards a new relationship after we leave on the 29th of March next year.
You know what? Okay, so I'm going to stop her right there. She keeps saying after we leave. You know what? Your plan is not really to leave. Theresa May. It's just not. It's cracking me up that she can deliver these speeches with a straight face. Pure politician. She is a pure politician. All right, so let us go to. I'm trying to decide what I want to go to next. All right, actually, let me go back to this article here, just because it kind of sums up some stuff. Boris Johnson accused Theresa May of suffocating Brexit as he sensationally resigned as Foreign Secretary. He declared war on the PM's Chequers plan and said negotiators had white flags fluttering above them. Are you leaving or are you just loading the car? Okay. But he came under fire after posing up 4 resignation photos, which showed him signing the letter to the PM. All right, so it says, this article is from the Daily Mail. Theresa May is fighting for her political life today after Boris Johnson accused her of killing Brexit and his allies backed him to be a brilliant PM. Mr. Johnson used his decision to quit as Foreign Secretary to declare war on her Chequers plan for leaving the EU. Warning that the UK was heading for colonial status, he said the Brexit dream was dying, suffocated by self-doubt. He claimed Mrs. May was sending negotiators into battle with white flags, and I read all of that. Boris also faced criticism in many quarters for taking the time to stage photos of himself signing the resignation letter and was branded Pound Sharp Churchill. So actually, let me bring up this shot of him. Again, it's so great that he posted that picture. All right, so next I'm going to take you, because I'm not going to finish that article because Leah and I are running short on time, but what I will do when the video finishes processing is I will link to all this stuff so you guys can go and read and finish it for yourselves. All right, but what does Nigel have to say about it? All right, so we have Nigel Farage has said that the government's sellout on Brexit may leave him with no choice other than to return as UKIP leader. Why is there? No, I want to close out that ad. It's not letting me close out the ad. Okay. Mr. Farage said it is something he never thought he would do, but plans to stand again as the party leader when current leader Gerard Batten's term ends in March next year. I say it's not soon enough. Making the announcement, Farage blasted Theresa May and her government, calling the Prime Minister appalling. His announcement comes after Brexit Secretary and David Davis and Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson resigned over Mrs. May's planned Brexit deal. Mr. Farage, who quit as leader following the 2016 EU referendum result, called on Conservative PMs to hold a vote of no confidence over the Prime Minister. Now, let's go to, let's see where I have it. All right, so this is Nigel Farage calling into James Whale, and I'm just going to let Nigel speak for a few minutes. So you can hear what he has to say.
I was a businessman. I was not engaged or involved in politics at all, but I took the view back in the early 1990s that the European project was the wrong thing for us, the wrong thing for Europe, and that's what got me involved in politics. I battled at it. I often thought I was going to become the patron saint of lost causes, but I kept on going. And I think, objectively, James, there would not have been a referendum without my efforts. And we had that referendum.
I agree with that.
We had that referendum, we won it, and I thought my job was done. I thought I could move into doing a few different things in life. But frankly, what came out of Chequers today was a complete betrayal, not just, by the way, of how people voted in the referendum, but how they voted in the general election. Because Mrs. May was very clear in her manifesto what was going to happen, that we were leaving the single market, leaving the customs union, we'd be an independent country. And what came out of Chequers was unacceptable. And what I'm saying is this: I'm pleased that David Davis has resigned. I'm pleased that Boris has decided to step aside. I think this Prime Minister needs to go. We will not get a clean democratic Brexit under Mrs. May. And if the Conservative Party do not come to their senses, then yes, when there is a leadership contest in UKIP at the end of March next year, which is due, I would then seriously consider throwing my hat back in the ring. And I can promise you, Conservative MPs sitting in marginal constituencies, if there was a strong UKIP candidate there, they would all lose their seats. So what I'm saying is, I don't want to do this, but I blooming well will if I have to.
Nigel, why don't you talk to some of your friends in the Conservative Party?
I had this same question.
Maybe stand as a Tory.
Because they hate me, James. They hate me. I mean, for many, many years, the one thing you could not say at a Tory dinner party was, I think we should leave the EU. You could endorse criminality and get away with it, but the EU was always the issue because they knew that there was a fault line in the party that could split it and could destroy it. And because it was me that exposed that, they'll never forgive me. And under this leadership, they wouldn't touch me with a barge pole. Now, if the...
Salah, see you later.
You're leaving?
Yeah, I gotta go. I told
Why don't take a flower out of your hair?
Well,
just because it matches your outfit.
What am I gonna do with this at Kathy's? Give it to her? Okay.
No, it's like the perfect color.
I had a friend who had a calf. She's not gonna use all the colostrum. My piggies are. I gotta go pick it up. This is part of our farm life. Welcome. Brexit out of the way, baby. We'll see you Friday at 6.
All right.
Michelle, take it out.
I'm going to take us out.
There was a different Tory leader who really wanted Brexit, and they asked me to help. I might think differently, but we're nowhere near that stage at the moment.
All right. Now, I know people find it difficult to believe that you and I are quite pally, although we have perhaps different views on this. But I think sometimes you get a bad press because you don't want to see us crashing out of a relationship with Europe, like some people say, oh yes, let's just tell them to go stuff themselves and we'll go our own way. You don't believe in that at all, really, do you?
Oh no, look, for goodness sake, I mean, I spent much of my career working for French banks. I have got 2 children with a German lady. They're bilingual. They spend time in Germany. I've drunk more French wine than most people alive. I love you.
I wouldn't go that far.
Well, maybe you'll challenge me, James.
Not after my hangover on Saturday, anyway, yeah.
But no, I mean, look, I want a Europe of cooperative nation states. I want us to be like neighbours, living in a street together, working very closely together.
Did you guys hear what he just said in comparison to what Leah was saying earlier when we were talking about the Thailand boys that were rescued and the whole world came together? That community worldwide should not be forced. And when it's not forced, we actually do come together. And so that's what Nigel's trying to say here. But I want to skip ahead to somewhere, I think around like the 7-minute mark, he has his "No More Mr. Nice Guy" line I wanted you guys to hear.
Should be getting yourself elected as a Conservative member of Parliament, because I can see you becoming the Prime Minister.
They hate him, though, James.
Yeah, well, they might. No. Some of them might hate him.
They respect him, but
it's not up to them. It's up to the people who vote. And if Nigel was to stand as a Conservative, I'm pretty sure he'd be in Parliament now. UKIP still has a bit of a bad reputation for having a few nutcases around, doesn't it?
That was the trouble.
Well, it does, James, but then look at the Conservative Party.
Well, yeah, no, I know. I just thought that when I was saying it. I thought, what a silly thing to say when you... I mean, but here's a serious thing, Nigel. We've got 3 months until this negotiation has to be carried out. 3 months. You can't get a new Conservative leader. It takes 3 months to do that. What is going to happen?
It's going to be delayed, isn't it?
No. Now, look. Don't delude yourself. During the month of August, Monsieur Barnier will be sunning himself on a southern French beach. Of course he will be. Brussels will be closed down. Now, what the Tory party could do, through their party board, is they could concertina that 3-month process into the month of August. There is nothing to stop a Tory leadership contest happening within the month of August, and we would have lost very little time at all. We just need a leader that actually believes in Brexit, in carrying out the democratic wishes of the people as expressed, not just in a referendum, but in a general election too. Everything in life is possible if you believe you can do it.
Boris Johnson or David Davis?
I like both of them, but I like both of them.
Jacob Rees-Mogg?
But I think the one man who maybe could just catch the imagination of the public because of his absolute sincerity and honesty is Jacob Rees-Mogg.
Really?
Yes, really. James, he's honest. He's honest. He's straight with people.
And would you work under him then as a Tory?
Well, I don't listen. We're miles away from that. I'm not interested in having a career in politics. No. I just want this country to be independent, and I want us to lead the rest of Europe towards a better Europe for everybody. And once that's done, I can go back to going fishing and going down the pub.
Good, because I could just do with a pint now, to be quite honest with you.
So could I. So could I. So could I.
So somewhere along the lines, I missed the "No more Mr. Nice Guy" line. I thought that I had it, but it must be elsewhere. But at some point, Nigel does say "No more Mr. Nice Guy," so that is a real possibility. So interesting development is that Trump backs Boris Johnson's resignation. They're calling it in this article on Breitbart a Brexit rebellion. It says President Trump has poured petrol onto the flames of UKIP Prime Minister Theresa May's Brexit crisis by coming out for her chief opponent, Boris Johnson. Now, I'll finish that article in a second, but let's hear this in Trump's very own words.
The UK, that's a situation that's been going on
You'll
for a
have to turn
long
this
time.
up.
So I have NATO, I have the UK, which is in somewhat turmoil, and I have Putin. Frankly, Putin may be the easiest of them all. Who would think? Who would think? But the UK certainly has they have a lot of things going on. Boris Johnson's a friend of mine. He's been very nice to me, very supportive. And maybe we'll speak to him when I get over there. I like Boris Johnson. I've always liked him.
All right, so we have Trump admitting that that's not what I wanted. Admitting that he likes Boris Johnson. This is what diplomats would like to call a guffaw, or I think that's how you say that, right? May, after all, is the leader of the nation to which Trump will shortly be making his first official, or is it gaffe? I don't know. You guys can tell me in the chat. I have no idea how to say that. I think guffaw is spelled differently. All right, his first official visit. Johnson, meanwhile, is May's new public enemy #1, having just resigned as her foreign secretary in protest at her watered-down Brexit plans. He no longer has any status within her government, yet here is President Trump publicly proposing to humiliate her by promising FaceTime to a nobody she considers persona non grata. Gaffe. It's just said gaffe. Thank you, Barry. Sure, Trump found time for some kind words about May too. I get along with her very well. I have a very good relationship. But that's just polite formula. It's the Johnson comments that will be noticed, as of course Trump intended them to be. To his numerous enemies, in which the UK media abounds, even in the conservative press, Trump coverage is almost uniformly negative. This will be seen as yet further evidence that Trump is entirely unsuited to any political office, let alone the leadership of the free world. So this is from The Guardian. So this kind of is a little bit of a timeline that I'm just going to go over briefly with you guys. All right. Here's a summary of what happened this afternoon. Prime Minister Theresa May reshuffled her cabinet after the resignations of key government ministers over her approach to Brexit. May's position looked precarious as she was hit by a series of high-profile resignations, including those of the foreign minister, we've covered that, and the Brexit secretary, David Davis. The long-serving Health Secretary Jeremy Hunt was appointed Foreign Secretary to replace Johnson, and Dominic Raab was made Brexit Secretary in place of Davis. Matt Hancock took over Hunt's role at the Department for Health, while Jeremy Wright was moved from Attorney General to Cultural Secretary to replace him. Wright was in turn replaced by Geoffrey Cox. There was also junior ministerial resignations as the Tory party took on a fractious heir. Kate Malthouse, a work and pensions minister, replaced Dominic Raab as housing minister, and Chris Heaton-Harris became a junior minister at the Brexit department, replacing Steve Baker. May addressed backbenchers, and many sought to protect an image of unity afterwards, but it took less than an hour for one attendee to hand in his resignation. May declared herself sorry and a little surprised to hear of Johnson's resignation. The former Foreign Secretary had claimed he now found her approach to Brexit, which he backed on Friday, impossible to back. He said that under it, the UK was headed for the status of colony. May eventually staved off the possibility of a confidence vote. Earlier in the day, she had said she would fight one if it was convened. Well, I don't think it matters. I thought that this tweet by Mr. Verhofstadt, Guy Verhofstadt, to be really telling and interesting. Verhofstadt, the chief Brexit coordinator for the European Parliament, says he hopes today's resignations will lead to unity in the UK government. Now listen to this. Walking out of the government won't make Brexit go away, which that's what he's saying he's hoping would happen, right? But as an optimist by nature, I hope that it creates some unity needed to find a parliamentary majority for an agreement that works. So what he's saying is, by Boris Johnson and David Davis leaving, he's hoping that there will be he's saying more unity in the UK government by getting rid of people that are opposing the general EU sentiment for the UK to stay in the European Union. So I thought that was really, 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 really interesting. So I thought this image right here was really helpful visually. The Press Association has produced this illuminating graphic showing the number of cabinet ministers Theresa May has lost in the last year. Okay, so obviously these people that are highlighted there, that's a pretty big deal. Okay, we went to a church out in Oklahoma, and the pastor, like after we left, the music minister that was on fire, all of the songs for the entire history of the church were written by this guy, loved it, everybody loved it, on fire for God, leaves the church, I think he divorces his wife and becomes an atheist. The youth minister, he and his wife were also on fire for God, and they left, and she had an affair, and they got divorced, and then he became an atheist. Why am I saying that? There is something to be said for leaders that can't help their people hold it together and stay cohesive. So, we can play this of Jacob Rees-Mogg. So for those of you that are in the United States and you're like, who is this Jacob Rees-Mogg that everybody's talking about? Well, here he is.
I might just tell them if they could be quiet for a minute. Guys, could you shut up for just 3 minutes? 3 minutes, I've got someone to speak to. Hold up, guys. Hold up. Hold up. Hold up.
I think that might be all I'm going to get. That's all we're going to get
Joining
to
us
see.
now is prominent
I
Brexiteer
had hoped we
Jacob
got
Rees.
to actually see the rest of Mogg. I'll have to find that, and we can bring that to you guys over the next couple of days. All right, so I think that might be all that I have for you guys on this. Yeah, this time no more Mr. Nice Guy. So yeah, Nigel is saying that if this whole thing goes south, and it may just go south, we'll see. We will see what happens. I mean, in all honesty, if there was a vote of no confidence, Boris Johnson, Jacob Rees-Mogg, whatever, David Davis gets put into position as prime minister, it could go north instead of south. We don't know. We'll see. But if it does go south in March of 2019, which is less than a year away, Farage says that he will be coming back. He says, I can assure any conservatives listening to this sitting in the marginal seats who are not prepared to stand up and honor the wishes of the electorate, I will make darn sure in that situation that you all lose your seats, because there are millions of conservative voters very unhappy indeed. Writing for The Telegraph, Mr. Farage said, I never wanted a career in politics. I only ever wanted to stop the country I love being sucked further into a political and economic union, which is most unnatural to the instincts of the majority of my fellow citizens. However, my own red line is that if Article 50 is suspended or delayed, I will have no choice but to resume campaigning in all parts of the United Kingdom. In March 2019, the current leader of UKIP, Gerard Batten, will reach the end of his term office. Unless Brexit is back on track by then, I will have to seriously consider putting my name forward to return as UKIP leader. I never thought that I would say that again. I think that kind of rounds that off. So here I am exiting the show by myself. Thank you guys for sticking with me. I'm sorry that Leah's not here. With Leah, you get Bernie Sanders. And that was pretty, I mean, I didn't see enough comments in that laughing at how incredibly funny that was. That was one of the funniest shticks she has done on this show. So we had to go live with you guys tonight because there is so much going on around the world right now. In the United States, we have Kavanaugh being nominated. We'll have to see how that even plays out. They may stonewall this whole thing. That's their plan, right? They have every intention of stonewalling the one establishment pick that Trump had, which I didn't want at all. And of course, they're still going to be upset about it. We have the 12 Thailand boys rescued. Praise the Lord. What an amazing miracle. We have Brexit in shambles, and yet we're seeing Theresa May scramble for air. It's like she's the one that's drowning, and she's in the back of the cave, and you know what? Maybe nobody's going to come and rescue her, and that would be absolutely fantastic. We've got Boris Johnson, David Davis resigning, which is kind of stirring up the waters. We will have to wait and see where that goes and how that happens. We have Trump pardoning. Wait a minute. There's I don't even know if there's anybody here to do that. I'm all by myself. That's right. I don't know anybody in Milwaukee that would be calling my home phone. So I hung up on them. We have Trump pardoning Dwight and Stephen Hammond, which is absolutely huge. I said it this afternoon when we went live outside. And maybe I said it again earlier in the show. The fact that Trump has done this, I feel like not only is it amazing and wonderful for them and for their family, the fact that he has done this, I feel like it is a nod to those of us in alternative media, the people that watch alternative media, to people that are red-pilled, that he says, I hear you. This is Trump fulfilling what the people want right here, right now. So when we hear the liberals and we hear the snowflakes crying, saying, Trump's not doing what the people want, I have news for you, snowflakes. Trump is doing exactly what the people want. He's going above and beyond in doing what the people want. All right. We've got him pardoning Dinesh D'Souza. I mean, things that any other, who was running this past year, I kind of forget now, except for Rand Paul, right? That any, like Ted Cruz, none of those guys would be doing these kinds of things. Are you serious? If this is from Milwaukee again. Nope, that's from Cincinnati, and I don't know who you are, so I'm just hanging up. I don't look like a cell phone number. I just hung up on them. I don't know that phone number. People are making me lose. Here, Mom, do you want this?
Mine's not working.
Yours isn't working. Nobody's is working. These people, this is the devil. They're making me lose my train of thought. No, Barry, I'm not going to sing Jerusalem. That's not how we're exiting this show today. I'm totally losing my train of thought, but the point is, Trump is doing what the people want. Things that anybody else, any establishment government person would not be doing, these kinds of things. Trump gets on Drudge. He goes to Drudge. He finds out the facts for himself. Okay? And I think that he really likes making the news on Drudge. So I went there earlier today because I put together the UK segment this evening. That's kind of my passion, as it were. And Leah didn't have much together for that. So I said, don't worry about it. I'll get the UK stuff together. So I was going to Drudge to get some stuff. And I don't really go to Drudge that often. I live with Leah. I don't have to. But I think that Trump likes to make news on the Drudge Report. I think that makes him feel really special. So the fact that he has pardoned the Hammonds puts him right there in the center of the Drudge Report, which I think is fantastic. He's made the mainstream news. And what I found interesting when I originally heard this on mainstream media, that's how I found out about it on our local news, was they did spin it. They called it arson right away, which they actually weren't charged under arson. But they didn't spin it as bad as I thought that they would have. So it's going to, people are going to all of a sudden say, hang on, who were these people? I love that, because the Cliven Bundys of this world, the Hammonds of this world, the Lavoy Finicums and Jeanette Finicums of this world, in that scenario, never get any news. So by Trump pardoning the Hammonds, not only does it set their family free, but it sets people on a search for, what is to this story? And there is a lot out there on the internet that is going to give these people the voice that they have wanted for the past. I mean, you guys, this started in 1997, okay? But it especially started in 2016 with Obama. So they have needed this voice for so long. And now Trump has given them that voice, that platform. The whole world now cannot deny that they know what is going on. And so I am very, very excited about that. This is one of the greatest moves that I think that President Trump has made in his presidency. Maybe I'm biased. I don't know. I had goosebumps when I heard about it. All right, so I'm going to sign off here. Thank you guys for sticking with me. I know I'm not Leah. I do the best that I can. Until the end, we love you. God loves you. God bless. Remember, it's not just a conspiracy theory if it's the truth. Like, comment, and subscribe to Mass Faith 3 and Resistance Chicks. If you ring the bell, I hope you get notifications. And I hope you don't get unsubscribed, because that's happening right and left. My mom was on So What 3 the other day, and she's like, I was unsubscribed. I go to channels, and I find that I'm unsubscribed. I know that YouTube pulls my subscribers, our subscribers, all of the time. So go and check to see if you're still subscribed to your favorite channels, not just ours. So we will see you this Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we will see you on Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I have asked our dear Horatio if he would come on. It's been a long time since we've had him on. And explain what's going on to you guys. He's a reluctant guest on our show. So I'm going to have to kind of work on him a little bit. You guys can leave that in the comment section and just be like, Horatio, we want you on the show. So, all right, you guys, thank you to all of our moderators who were here tonight. I don't even know, I wasn't able to keep track very much tonight, but I see Mama Donna and Gary. I think Sooks was here for a while, Britt Baza. Yeah, Sooks is still here. I think Maia was here. We will, but you know what? You know what this is like? This is like being married to somebody and they like something that you may not be into, like, at all, and yet you like it because they like it. How about that? I am excited about the World Cup for you guys. So, that should be enough. All right, you guys. God bless. Thank you for being here. Have a wonderful rest of your evening and rest of the week. Bye.